Now, I've been avoiding doing this video for a long time, and that's due to two main reasons. First, this is going to anger a lot of people with some very fragile feelings, but also disproving this properly takes a long time and a lot of testing that, frankly, I don't have the money or the time to do. But then I keep getting comments like this, either asking to hear the difference between preamps or just outright saying certain preamps sound better. But then I saw this video by a creator named Jim Lill. And honestly, if you haven't heard of him and you really do want to learn more about audio, he is an amazing source. And as luck would have it, it would seem Jim has enough money and time to do all the things I really couldn't, which is a happy accident for me, I'd say. Funny thing, he even knew he was going to make people mad with his video, so here we are doing the same. But if you're not into over-explaining or in-depth testing and a bunch of graphs, allow me to anger the masses as well, using Jim's testing. Now, what Jim did here was spend a lot of money on a legendary preamp by a company called Neve. It's been his lifelong, or at least musical goal, to own the same preamp that all of his favorite music had been made through. He spent, as he says, 6 months of rent on it. Or if you're willing to do some basic counting in his video, it's around 10,000 bucks. Oof. Now, according to him, this video came about when he realized there was no difference in sound between this $10,000 legend and a first-gen Scarlett 2i2. I know this is going to piss off a lot of those Scarlett haters, but he does show his work. Then he takes all the arguments from the professionals in his comments and tests those theories. And slowly, he unfolds his findings, which each time debunks them. And by the end of these 47-ish minutes, you should be walking away with a better understanding of preamps and why they aren't magic beans. Okay, then what are they? So let's just get this out of the way now. What are preamps? Well, in the simplest of terms, a preamp takes a weak audio signal and boosts it into a stronger signal. That's it. It amplifies the signal. They're not intended to impart anything on the signal, just amplification. Then there's something called a converter that takes an analog signal and converts it into a digital one. Now, preamps and converters can be separate, especially in higher quality gear, or they can be in the same piece, kind of like the lower cost gear, like the Scarlett series. And that's pretty much it. But there is one difference. And yes, you can actually hear this difference. So all preamps are looking for transparency, meaning they're trying to recreate the original sound as close as possible when they amplify it. However, this is where you can get into some issues with noise. Now, overall noise on a unit is measured as EIN, or equivalent input noise. This number usually works in tandem with a couple of other specs, namely gain and signal-to-noise ratio, or SNR. Now, to put it simply, the lower the noise of the unit with the highest gain possible, and the highest signal-to-noise ratio is the best. And if you get all that, your interface will impart very little noise. However, noise isn't necessarily an issue for everyone. In fact, a lot of the character of some older gear can be found in that noise. That's a whole other story. But the core of that is all noise sounds different, and it's all dependent on several factors, including the preamp. Now, this is the only factor in comparisons that will give you a difference when putting one interface against another. But for most people trying to avoid noise and looking to get as clean of a signal as possible, this does seem like an odd way to choose an interface. And this is where all of the voices are coming out of the woodwork saying, "But Aiden, I can hear it." And that's cool if you think you can hear the difference. But I hate to tell you this, what you're hearing is in your head. And that's all about bias. Now, if you don't believe me, you can watch all my videos kind of pertaining to bias. I'll link them down below. If you still don't believe me though, go watch Jim's video. Of course, linking that down below as well. Because there's one undeniable truth in all of this. Signals are math. Amplification is math. And audio is math. And math isn't up for argument. This is the fun part because I love in Jim's video where he starts to break down the actual real differences. And it all came from the performances, the production, all of that kind of stuff. See, if you record the White Album anywhere else other than Abbey Road, and You're still going to have the White Album. It would still be legendary. Microphones matter, sure. Instruments do matter for sure as well, to some degree. But if you're considering a new preamp to take your stuff over the top, you're kind of actually doing it wrong. What really matters on interfaces is the features, or whether or not they're needed by you. Perhaps it's the onboard DSP or the channel count. But even as companies release interfaces with specific use cases like podcasting, those work just as well for anything. Dylan and I proved that by recording a studio quality song with the Rodecaster Pro 2. You see, the only limits of what you can do with an interface are imposed by you. Lots of amazing music has been made on this, the first-gen Scarlett 2i2. Lots of amazing music has been made on Muse. Trying to listen to samples on a YouTube video isn't going to make your purchase decision, as your bias is always going to make that decision for you. But before you think I'm only telling you this to limit people buying expensive gear, no. There are still benefits to really nice gear, and there's nothing wrong with buying something you want if you can afford it. You can kit out your studio with $1 million in gear, and that's cool. But you have to remember two things. This doesn't mean that you're going to be able to record anything better than anyone else. And it doesn't mean any other setup can't record music as well as you. Again, if you have time, you need to watch Jim's video. It's fascinating, and it might just make you smarter because it made me smarter. And in the audio industry, we need more people making other people smarter, instead of a bunch of people sticking to their guns over minor perceptions that may or may not be induced by the kind of mushrooms you just ate. Make your decisions to buy on the things that actually matter. Learn what specs are and why they're important, and go buy that. Or find yourself a trusted voice on YouTube that you feel won't lead you astray, and just do what they say. Either way, be safe with your money, and I'll see you in the next video.